These are not in the market any longer. They've been replaced by the BeoPlay H8i. These are the H8 by Bang & Olufsen. But I just wanted to have a look at these just to see what B&O had to offer when it came to the style, the build, and of course the sound. Hi guys, I'm Paul and welcome to another episode. If you like what I'm doing on my channel, feel free to like. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe. Today I'd really like to thank a supporter of the channel, my dad, for providing these headphones, and if I like these too much, they're not coming back to you. These were launched in 2015 overseas, but India only got to see these maybe in mid 2016 and at a terrific price of 39,000 rupees. So I'm going to be seeing how these have fared over the past few years, and I'm going to be putting them through that vigorous testing that I usually do. And of course, we're going to see if B&O is worth considering for your next set of headphones. Buying into this Scandinavian company only means that you're bound to get some of the top of the line finish and materials. This set is made with lambskin leather ear pads, a leather headband, and the stems and the yokes on these are made out of anodized aluminium. It does have a few plastic bits, but it's all high quality materials. This does have a few small scratches and scuffs over all these years, but if you give it a bit of a cleanup, it looks great. The headphones can be adjusted to your liking, but these do not have slots that click into place like other headphones. These just glide along the stems until you find a comfortable fit and they sit there quite firmly. The headphone clamping force is still quite good. It sits pretty firmly around your ears. And if you do want to adjust the tension of these, you can always just loosen it up a bit like this or tighten it up a bit like this. My dad's not going to be happy about that part. One thing I've never liked about headphones like these is this, the on-ear design. Because it sits just on the outside of your ear. It's not around the ear and comfortable like most of those are. I feel a little bit of tension on my ears if I listen to these for a little more than 2 or 3 hours. Having said that, these ear pads in particular are really plush and feel extremely comfortable, and they're not as uncomfortable as other on-ear headphones I've used in the past. When these were launched on a feature front, they were at par with the Bose QC25s when it came to the active noise cancelling. These don't sound anything like the Bose QC25s. They've got their own sound signature, which I will speak about a little later in the review. B&O does have an app which you can download either off the Play Store or App Store for your Android or iOS devices. But I have no idea how it works because on either platform, the app wasn't able to detect the headphones. This has one switch on it that lets you put it off or on, slip the headphones into pairing mode, or reset the headphones. The Bluetooth seems a little glitchy because every time I've tried to connect my Android or iOS devices, it takes longer than I'd like, or I just have to go into the settings to manually pair with the headphones. What's really neat is that it's got very receptive touch controls on the right yoke. Swiping upwards will activate the ANC, swiping down will switch it off. Volume up and down is controlled by moving your finger in a clockwise or counterclockwise motion. Tapping the center will pause and play your audio or answer and end phone calls, and swiping forward and back will skip your tracks to the next or previous songs. The ANC is good on these, but if you're just using them to quiet your surroundings, you might hear a slight hiss and sometimes a thump intermittently. How would these fare in a real world situation though? Now let's see how these fare in a real world setting with phone calls. So I'm calling from the B&O H8 and I'm standing next to a relatively busy street that's behind me, and you should get an idea of the environmental noise that's going on over here, and I will be switching over to the B&O H8 microphone about now.
just so you get the idea of how well it removes all the airiness of the noise around me, and also a lot of the traffic. So this is pretty much how your recipient will be hearing you when you give them those phone calls. And I'll see you back in the studio.
Battery life, I don't think has really been a problem with these because this does have a removable battery. So if you really need extra battery time, you could always buy a spare one and keep both of them charged. Volumes above 30% give you a nice balanced output. Anything below that, there's a sudden loss of highs and lows. 50% is where you'd want to be with these. 70% can get a bit too loud, so you might want to stay out of that range. The sound profile of these switch when you toggle between on and off on your noise cancellation. With it off, they suddenly sound quite hollow. So technically, you always want the noise cancellation on if you want to enjoy these to the fullest. Soundstage of these is very similar to the Bose QC35s which I reviewed last. It's narrow, but it's well balanced between left and right channels. The phantom channel is dead center, and there is a slight vertical presentation with vocals. They give you a sense of height with some instruments and voices. Some tones do give the illusion of coming at you from further out, but largely, these present themselves in a small bubble which is expected from closed back headphones. On an imaging front, I wasn't expecting much from these, to be really honest, but I was pleasantly surprised. It's almost pin sharp but does blur at the edges very slightly. It's quite easy to decipher the timbre of what's being played on all frequencies, and you might just hear sounds out of these that you haven't heard from other ANC headphones. High frequencies are tuned really well and don't cut into the ear. You could listen to music until the battery dies and you still wouldn't feel any fatigue. Whether you listen to Dire Straits or The Weeknd, at moderate or higher volumes, the highs remain crisp and silky smooth. Sibilances don't really creep in here, but that could also depend on your recording. Mid frequencies are slightly recessed, but not so recessed that they are canyon deep. The vocals sit just slightly behind the rest of the audio and present themselves with enough enthusiasm to forget that there is that slight recession. Male and female vocals have good balance amongst the rest of the frequencies and are not lost as you'd expect. Instruments have good detail and are not drowned out by any vocals in this frequency range. Lower frequencies have an accentuation, but they remain tight and composed for all genres from country to dance music. This frequency does tend to spice up your music or movie watching experience. Action scenes do seem a little more dramatic when you hear lower rumbles from these headphones. But it's not all sunshine and roses. The Bluetooth connection is quite glitchy. If my phone's on my desk and I just take 4 to 5 steps away, the signal starts chopping. If the phone is in my pocket and I start walking with the headphones on and listening to music, it starts chopping. These could give Gordon Ramsay a run for his money when it comes to that department. But the other issues with this are, if you have them on for a little too long, the lambskin is comfortable, the lambskin ear pads, but they tend to heat up quite a lot, and that amount of tension on the ear is also terrifically uncomfortable. Those blurred lines that I spoke about while testing them for the imaging, I decided to put to the test, and I plugged these into my hi-fi setup just to see how they do with lossless audio. Those blurred edges became razor sharp and these sounded significantly clearer, which means their only bottleneck really is their Bluetooth. Everything about them became much livelier. It's almost as if these drivers prefer a high-res audio source rather than Bluetooth. Then again, who buys Bluetooth headphones so that they can be plugged in all the time? Considering how much these cost, they seem a bit confused in the sound department. Then again, you get premium build, you get terrific features, you get a swappable battery if you want to prolong that battery life. If you're looking for something that is more specific to sound, you can get something significantly better in the open back headphone department. No doubt, you would have those trade-offs. You wouldn't get noise cancellation, you wouldn't get touch control features and so on, but you would get something that has been bred to give you the best sound there is. So would I have recommended these headphones to you, and will I recommend B&O headphones to you today? Considering their fit and finish and also their sound reproduction having that slight edge over the competition, I'd say definitely yes. So remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Remember to click that bell icon for future notifications, like and share my video, and thank you for tuning into Paul's POV for some sound advice. Slightly better than its competition today. Is that okay? Something was not right, no?
Yes.
Something wasn't right, like the pieces of the puzzle are there. but it's